my father, for example, he has a disinfectant. You have to spray all the trails that I use in the house. For example, when I touch the fridge, you come and spray the handle. When I touch the doorknob, I mean, some of them were paranoid. It's scary. Sometimes you wake up and you are already corona fatigued. You're like, oh, not again. How many people are going to be announced dead? How many people are going to be infected today? What's the story we're going to report today? Are the numbers going to increase today when we get to work?
Before we give you more on this particular issue, let's get to know more about our journalist for the day. You've been at these isolation centers, and we all know the somewhat scary stories behind COVID-19 in general. And for you to go so close to what everybody is scared of, coming back to your office, going back home to your families, tell us about it.
Interesting. So on the day I returned from the treatment center, I actually told only 2 people in the newsroom about the story I had gotten, because I didn't set out to go there in the first place. We went for a different assignment, and we happened to meet some doctors at the place who were gracious enough to allow us to get into the UGMC treatment center. So not many of the people in the newsroom knew I had the story. So when I came, I told just 2 people, and one of them was MFR, one of them was Matilda. At the time, there was a production going on. So I whispered into their ear that this is what I've done. I've gone to the treatment center. Immediately, they started running back. They're like, hey, then stay away from me. I had to now calm her and tell her that, see, not many people know that I have the story. Relax. Let me properly discuss with the editors that this is what I have. And then we know how to package it, for broadcast. And so she was the first person I told about. She was surprised. She was scared as well, and said they should isolate me. Okay, so then I had to consciously make her understand that this is a big scoop that I got. If she bursts out in the newsroom, around that time, all the editors and producers at the time will keep scrambling for the content, and so she should take it easy. So we have a discussion with the managing news editor who will give direction about how we package it and broadcast later.
So what happened next? Were you isolated? How did your colleagues react to you in the newsroom? And then your family?
Okay, so in my home, for example, my parents, after they saw the story on the television, were scared. So my father, for example, he has a disinfectant. You have to spray all the trails that I use in the house. For example, when I touch the fridge, you come and spray the handle. When I touch the doorknob, I mean, some of them were paranoid, especially my mother. It wasn't easy at all. I mean, for 3 or 4 days, they kept doing that. And I completely understand them. I mean, it's precautionary. We all are still struggling to understand this virus and how it's operating. So it was completely in their place to do what they did. And their concern, I think, was addressed when I had to explain to them that I was fully protected, when they saw the visuals that I was in PPE from top to down, and the chances of being exposed to the virus were very limited at the time. So since then, it's been okay, but you get random calls from friends and people who are asking, "Are you okay? I saw you on TV. Are you sure you're okay? Are you in quarantine, for example? Are you still going to work?" and stuff like that. But it was an experience.
Well, I think some of these concerns are genuine and legitimate, because putting yourself in their shoes, I'm sure you would have done same. But Absolutely. As a journalist, you had this scoop going into that hospital with all the fears that we had seen and we've read about, and the facts and the figures and all that. At that point, what was really going through your mind as a journalist? Was it just about the story you were going to get, or there was a bit of you that was also holding back?
Catherine, it's an interesting question. Well, initially I didn't want to do it. When I was told by one of the editors who had liaised with the doctors at the facility to get us to go and do this, he spoke to me and said, "Komla, do are you ready for this? Would you do this? It took me some time to
So it was kind
process
of
and
like
think about whether I wanted to
the
do
sample
it,
test
what the
just
fears
confirmed
were,
my
what the
my
chances
fears.
and
So
the exposure
psychologically,
levels were going to be, and what my parents would think. In fact, those in the office, what I thought about all those things. So it took me like 7 or 8 minutes to make the decision that I wanted to do it. The part of me, which was a journalist, was excited because yes, this is like a big story. Not many people have had access to the treatment centers, so it's something I want to do. The human aspect of me was, okay, what if I go in and things go wrong and I get infected, touch wood? What happens to my family, especially my aged parents who are at home, who we know belong to the high risk group, and then those in the offices, because then the company will have to shut down because many of my colleagues here, we work together, they will have to be quarantined, that's why they have to be tested and stuff like that. So those kept playing up in my mind. And after carefully thinking through, and the assurances I got from the doctors that we're going to be fully protected, I decided to go ahead and do this.
So how did the experience in, I mean, putting together this story influence your other decisions as to whether to continue doing stories on COVID-19 or not?
This opened a lot of interesting angles that hitherto were not very glaring to many of us in the newsroom here. It was a very key episode in this whole COVID reporting bit because we had heard from the health experts, we had heard from the politicians, we had heard from almost everybody in this chain, except those who were infected, those who were living with the condition, and also those who were on the forefront treating these people who have been infected. So it was an eye opener, as I said. And once we were able to put together this story and then broadcast it, it began opening other angles. Now there's a discussion about having us go to, for example, how these COVID bodies are disposed of. You know, if we have the chance to go and film a typical session where these dead bodies are disposed of, it's something that we want to do.
So, going forward, how has your experiences so far shaped you in the coming days? COVID is still on. We are all trying and praying that we get out of it, but it's still around. And according to experts, it's going to be around for a longer time.
A while.
Exactly. So, with all these, you've had your own share of the fears and anxiety and everything. So, going forward, how has this shaped your general perspective to the pandemic, and how prepared it's made you going forward?
Well, I mean, before I had access to the treatment center, we had heard the stories, we had, watched on other international networks how devastating this could be. We had seen grim pictures and videos of people, dead bodies lining up on the street because these countries were overwhelmed, etc. But then getting in there and seeing for ourselves, also from the perspective that many people around here still doubt that this disease is real and it's in Ghana. And also those who know that the disease is in Ghana are also stigmatizing, people who are suspected to have the disease. So getting access to the place opened my eye to a bigger picture of this whole COVID situation we speak about. Because some of the people who had mild conditions that I interacted with, if you saw them in town and nobody told you that they were ill, you wouldn't have known that they were ill. And these are people who are going about their normal duties, only that they are on drugs and medication. And then those who were in critical condition at the time I went to the ICU were those who literally were helpless. They were being helped to live because they were on life supports. They had to be fed. They had to be, literally everything had to be done for them. So when you see people like that, you become helpless. And some of these people at the time when I got there, where one of them was a doctor, for example, who was in critical condition in the ICU. And you think and you reflect and say, okay, so if he lays there helplessly and is being supported to live with machines, then how less those of us who are walking about and exposing ourselves to this disease with the notion that they're not going to be infected, or this is a big man's disease in quotes.
Yes. So lastly, just before you go, talking about being alive to tell the stories, you have really come face to face with the realities, in as much as people don't seem to appreciate it that much. Going to work every day, waking up, coming to work, I mean, with this at the back of your mind, knowing how real it is, don't you get scared at times when you have to do this over and over and over again?
Get scary. Sometimes you wake up and you are already corona fatigued. You're like, oh, not again. How many people are going to be announced dead? How many people are going to be infected today? What's the story we're going to report today? Are the numbers going to increase today when we get to work? So like, you keep having this play on your mind. In one breath, you want this to be over and done with in time. In another breath, of course, because of the news value, you want the latest situation so you can report. So it gets tiring sometimes, but as long as we are told that this is going to stay for a long time, I'm not sure we can be tired. We will keep doing corona stories each day. And those of us who are on air and we report and we do this, we broadcast these stories, sometimes it gets tiring for us, but we can't help it.
And I guess that same point is also giving journalists a field day, because, Charlie, there's content to deal with. You never run out of stories this time.
And what happens is that once you have any other story, all you need to do for the story to get airtime is to get a corona angle to the story. So for example, if you have a story about water shortage in, just say because of COVID, people have water shortage, they can't wash their hands, and so it's a challenge. It will get airtime. You play it. If there's a robbery situation somewhere, you just have to give it a corona slant. It will get airtime. Otherwise, it won't get airtime in this era.
I so know what you're talking about. Because it gets to times where in the newsroom, depending on what's trending, if your story does not have a bit of angle to that issue, then forget it. And so you see people, I'm sure there are slacks like Corona armed robbery, Corona sanitation,
Crazy.
Anyway, then I guess this we're going to caption this episode Corona word. Corona 101. Corona 101 with Komla.
No.
Corona Komla.
Corona 101.
Corona 101.